The literary work and film My Girl, 1991, directed by Howard Zayef, is a coming-of-age drama that explores themes of death, loss, and growth. The movie follows an 11-year-old girl growing up in the 70s, Veda Sultanfuss. She is a curious young girl who naively impedes her ability to understand the conflicts of life and morality. Raised in a funeral home by her emotionally distant father, she connects and has a strong bond that almost overpowers her friendship to Thomas J., who was her one and only true connection to childhood. As Veda is forced to confront his tragic death, she goes through the stages of grief and enters adolescence through her maturity. Throughout the movie My Girl, viewers are given a bird's-eye view of Veda's journey to maturity. The analysis of her journey, handling death and loss, explores morality shaping Veda's understanding of life, love, maturity, and allowing viewers to see My Girl as a coming-of-age movie. Ultimately, the goal is for viewers to see Veda's loss of childhood innocence and growth through maturity in the movie. First, this will be done by analyzing her initial inability to comprehend and understand death and sickness through her interactions with characters such as her father, Harry Sultanfuss, his work colleague, Arthur, Veda's school friends, her grandmother, Dr. Welty, Nurse Randall, Shelley DeVoto, and Thomas J. These interactions are significant as they establish her initial naivety in the beginning of the movie. Similarly, the following objective is for readers to view Shelley's contribution to Veda's exploration of emotional and physical growth, Veda's sexual awakening through Shelley, and her presence as a mother and parental figure to Veda. Veda's connection to Shelley will not just be explored by analyzing their interactions, but also seeing the effects of single parenthood and how the absence of parental figures, the entrance of a new one, changes family security and dynamics. Another crucial goal to address is Thomas J. as the connection holding Veda to her childhood and the significance his loss had on her life. This will be achieved by exploring the moments where Thomas J. held Veda to her childhood despite the difficult moments she faced, and by examining Veda's switch when Thomas J. passed and the stages of grief portrayed through her actions in the film. Furthermore, it's also important to examine his loss and Shelley's role as a mother figure as it helped mend Veda and her father's broken relationship. Finally, the audience will connect with the passage of time and the idea that loss is necessary to growth. Shelley's presence was essential in the Sultanfuss house because of the lack of a maternal figure for Veda. Since she grew up motherless and was never taught about puberty by her father, Veda was naive to the implications and effects her changing body might have. A study done in northern Ethiopia explained how the taboo of menstruation affected girls by saying, "Schoolgirls do not have an adequate understanding of the physiology and menstruation and do not receive adequate emotional support," leaving them with feelings of embarrassment and anxiety. The same idea applies to Veda because of her father's negligence and lack of explaining puberty, when she doesn't get a chance to learn from it until she figures out when she finally gets her first period and Shelley explains to her. One day while in the bathroom, Veda notices that she got on her period and screams for her father. She then runs out, and Shelley asks her what's wrong. Veda expresses her concerns about death by saying, "I'm hemorrhaging." Until Shelley stepped in as a motherly figure and explained puberty and menstruation to Veda, this 11-year-old girl was kept naive because of the lack of hygiene and education she received. Moreover, because of her constant relationship with death, she faced anxiety with the belief that she was dying. As a result, she was scared, anxious, and forced to mature quickly when she got her period, since she believed she was dying and never having been told about it before. Shelley's guidance marked a turning point for Veda in the coming-of-age journey, highlighting how what once was the void and absence of a maternal figure, leaving Veda unprepared, is now being mended because of Shelley's role and impact in Veda's life. Throughout the film, Veda's father's unintentional emotional negligence is demonstrated multiple times as she grows, and it plays a key role in her developing her connection to Thomas J. The first line of dialogue in the film comes from Veda when she says,
"I was born jaundiced. Once I sat on a toilet seat at a truck stop and caught hemorrhoids. And I've learned to live with this chicken bone that's been lodged in my throat for the past 3 years. So I knew Dad would be devastated when he learned of my latest affliction." Dad, I don't want to upset you, but my left breast is developing at a significantly faster rate than my right. It can only mean one thing: cancer. I'm dying.
Okay. Sweetie, hand me the mayonnaise out of the fridge.
Yet, her father's response was simply, "Okay, sweetie, hand me the mayonnaise in the fridge." Veda projects the fear of death upon herself because she lives both in a funeral home and is constantly surrounded by death, yet her father dismisses her emotionally. Contrary to her father, Thomas J. did support Veda and accompanied her to the doctor's office visits multiple times throughout the film, despite Dr. Welty constantly telling Veda that she's perfectly fine each time. According to Yao Zhang's research under Frontiers in Public Health, she examined how children are affected by living without parents during different stages of life, and found that many of them tried to become more autonomous from their parents. During adolescence and near adulthood, peers such as close friends or romantic partners often replace parents and become their attachment figures. Therefore, Veda's connection to Thomas J. could be seen as a response to the void left by her father, which allows Veda to still be childlike despite being surrounded by circumstances forcing her growth. The loss of a parent, whether experienced later in childhood or is an absence throughout childhood, impacts a child's emotional development and affects their perception of loss and morality. Echoes of Loss by Soher studied the main themes of childhood and death of a parent, one of which was even the perception of early loss of a parent through trauma. All interviewed participants described their loss as traumatic events that left long-lasting emotional and psychological marks. However, when analyzing the people who were interviewed, their ages ranged between 6 and 17 when they lost their parents. None of them had grown up without a parent, yet their emotions still resembled those shown by Veda in the film. A lady named Ziva, who lost her mother at 12 years old, was interviewed and said that after her mother's death, she understood that death can occur to anyone at any given moment. Nothing is certain. Even the most certain thing in life, your mother, can die, and it's something that you're not even assuming could happen. So many of Ziva's perceptions changed radically. In the film, Veda did not have to directly face her mother's death because she was a newborn when her mother passed. However, she was left without a motherly figure. Regardless, growing up surrounded by death, Veda on a surface level understood it could happen to anyone, even to the point where she constantly believed she was sick. Yet, her perception of death changed to resemble Ziva's when she realized that the most solid person in her life, the only person who truly understood her and was her connection to her childhood, died. Coming of age and exposure in My Girl parallels the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee through Scout and Veda's naivety and childlike lens. Through the novel, Scout is naive to racism until she sees it in person herself. When Scout's father, Atticus, defends a black man, her classmate announced that Atticus defended a colored person, yet the classmate had used a racial slur. When Scout asks her father if that's true, she repeats the slur, and her father reprimands her by saying, "Do not say that word, Scout." When Scout questions why, her father says, "Well, now it's everyone less than one saying it." Despite being surrounded by constant racism, it took Scout up until that moment to realize what the slur meant and to realize that it was derogatory. It took her up until that moment to recognize racism since someone was insulting her father. Similarly, with Veda, she is surrounded by death her whole life, and up until the moment where she experiences personal loss herself, she does not completely understand the gravity of death and the impact it has on her. And the understanding of death she has because of her mother is both subconscious and subconscious because she blames herself for it. So once Veda loses Thomas J, she realizes that death can impact her even when she doesn't expect it. The film shifts into a heavy movie resembling Veda's emotions when Thomas J is stung by bees. What seems like a beautiful moment that Thomas J goes to find Veda's ring to propose to her and to give to her quickly shifts when he is stung by bees and unfortunately passes away. When readers see that the ring was in his hand, it adds to the deep love that he kept for her. Veda then runs to the doctors and goes back to her old habits like she has throughout the movie. But this time she says, "I can't breathe, I'm suffocating. It hurts so bad, the bee stings, I can't breathe." She was projecting his pain onto herself. According to an article from Childhood Bereavement UK, it says that children tend to act out with behaviors rather than expressing themselves verbally, and they will gradually learn to properly express themselves. This is directly showcased through her mannerisms. Her anxiety regained control of her and led her to a place where Thomas J had always accompanied her, the doctor's office. When Veda was looking at Thomas J. at the open casket funeral, it was the first time she was seen in genuine distress. She yells to people and says, "His face hurts. Where are his glasses? He can't see without his glasses." She rehumanized him by making it seem like he was still in pain, showcasing her denial for his death. As she runs and tries to escape, she finds her teacher with his girlfriend. Her childlike naivety comes to an abrupt end when she's facing the end of her fantasies. Although she tried to run away, she was trivializing her deep-seated, untreated anxiety, which was covered by her innocence. However, Thomas J.'s death finally uncovered her reality. Veda constantly expected death, but the unexpected truly happened when someone she loved died. The unexpected happened when her worst imagination came to life. Through the stages of grief, Veda moves on from death, and her acceptance shines when she says, "I should have told Thomas J. that he was my best friend," but also through her growth and acceptance when she creates a poem in a creative writing class. In the beginning of the film, when she first joined the class, she wrote a poem that she seemed super excited to share. It was called "Loads of Ice Cream" by Veda Sultanfuss. It said, "I like ice cream a whole lot. It tastes good when days are hot or on a cone on a dish. This is my only wish, vanilla, chocolate, or rocky road, even with a pie a la mode." Mr. Bixler explained to her that he wanted to see how she saw the world, her fears, her desires, and her innermost secret. Her interior dialogue says that her biggest fear is that she killed her mother. Now, once Thomas J. passed, Veda confronted death, and her poem demonstrated this by showing how she moved on from death. Her second poem reads,
"Weeping willow, with your tears running down, why do you always weep and frown? Is it because he left you one day? Is it because he could not stay? On your branches he would swing. Do you long for the happiness that they would bring? He found shelter in your shade. He thought his laughter would never fade. Weeping willow, stop your tears. There is something to calm your fears. You think death has ripped you forever apart, and I know he'll always be in your heart."
This poem showed the coming of age through the film by Veda's growth. Her first poem, she was naive and believed that her poem about ice cream was meaningful. However, when she finally experienced the death of her best friend, she came to write a poem filled with symbolism and remembrance to Thomas J. Davidson Institute analyzes gifted children through the film. It says, "These children may feel alienated and alone in a classroom of peers and different interests. Along with the feeling of being misunderstood by their peers, gifted children also experience difficulty being understood by adults." This relates to Veda as her maturity hasn't reached yet by the time she wrote the first poem. However, by the time she read her second poem, she was mature and people understood her work. The poem showed that even though Thomas J. is no longer with Veda, she will look at the trees and remember him. She will miss his company. She will miss her best friend. Her official recognition is presented when Veda says, "I know he'll always be in your heart." Finally, coming of age is represented through the bicycles in My Girl. The first time bikes are seen is when Veda and Thomas J. are riding together. Throughout the film, despite what happens, it is the one thing they keep sacred and always do together. The bikes also appear during impactful moments in the film. It appears when Veda is going out to the doctor's office, when she found the image of her mother, and when she tries to run away from home with Thomas J. The last time both of them are seen together is with bikes as she rides away when Thomas J. asks her, "Veda, would you think of me if you didn't marry Mr. Bixler?" Lastly, the bike represents the acceptance in the stages of grief, moving through passages of life when she finally comes to terms with the death of her best friend. This is displayed as the movie ends with Veda and Judy becoming friends and them riding the bike out together. Her being on the bike with others showcases her ability to associate the bike not just with childhood fantasies, but with new possibilities. My Girl by Howard Zayef shows how loss, emotional negligence, and absence of parental figures shapes a child's journey from innocence to maturity. While the movie captures the confusion of growing up without a maternal figure and a void between Veda and her father, Shelley's nurturing presence teaches Veda the realities of maturing and offers Veda the first sense of maternal care she's known. The analysis of her journey handling death and loss explores the morality shaping Veda's understanding of life, love, and maturity. Her grief is not only a reaction to the loss of her best friend Thomas J., but a push leading her to growth and maturity. Ultimately, My Girl is not just a story of a young friendship and love. It's a coming-of-age film depicting how no one has control over loss, and through loss comes development and growth.
So darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. In the sky that we look upon should tumble